yourself to the interest of the party.
The interest of the party should come first. All right, let's move straight to our final story. The Super Eagles of Nigeria experienced one of the worst times in their AFCON qualifiers assignment. The Nigerian contingent endured a long stay at the airport after their chartered aircraft, which was built to land at the Benghazi airport ahead of the second leg of their 2025 Africa Cup of Nations qualifiers against Libya, scheduled for Tuesday, was diverted to the Al-Brak airport. The Libyan authorities held Super Eagles and officials hostage for about 12 hours afterwards. Reacting to the shoddy treatment meted out to the team by the Libyans, President Bola Tinubu has urged the disciplinary board of the Confederation of African Football, CAF, to conduct a thorough investigation and take appropriate action against those who willfully violated its statutes and regulations. Before we move to our guest in Abuja, BKO, let me just have your thoughts on this one. The president is saying he's demanding thorough investigation. This is a good call, don't you agree?
Yes, his subjects went to represent their country and they were treated so badly. They were mid-air. In fact, they had begun descending when the pilot was told that he should move to that small airport, 300 kilometers east of Benghazi, where they were headed. They told him to go and land there. And the order to divert came suddenly. So the pilot argued with them that, look, you must consider the fact that the fuel we had was already calculated for the Benghazi trip. But they told him, look, this decision was from above. You had to go and land at that domestic airport. And that airport was ill-equipped. Instrument landing system was non-existent. They had to resort to visual landing.
Oh dear, that's risky.
And at night, that is an extremely dangerous venture, because the omnidirectional equipment that they needed in such a situation was also non-existent. So it amounted to putting the lives of our players in extreme danger.
Sure.
So the Tunisian pilot argued, well, he said, look, go and land where we have told you. Some people believe that they did it on purpose, that they claim that Nigeria also treated them badly.
When they were here.
Yes, they landed in Port Harcourt instead of Uyo. But the Nigerian officials have said, no, that
was not what happened.
We didn't tell them to go and land in Port Harcourt. I know that Nigerian, African countries do a lot of brinksmanship just to be able to gain a little advantage. But subjecting those players to more than 14 hours without food, without water, just hanging around in the airport,
just like that,
amounts to extreme wickedness. And the Libyan soccer authorities need to be punished. I read this afternoon that the president of the Football Federation
resigned.
I don't know whether it's related to that or he just got frustrated altogether. But as the president said, this has to be investigated thoroughly, and we want to see
punitive measures
that the CAF will take.
Okay. All right. Joining us from our Abuja studio for more discussion on this issue is the chairman, Kogi State Football Association, Hassan Wada. Hassan Wada, thank you so much for joining us on Journalist Hangout.
Thank you for having me on the show again. Thank you so much.
All right, let's begin the conversation this way. The Libyan authorities, they've responded in a statement, and they said that there was no foul play, there was no sabotage. They claim that a similar experience they had here in Nigeria. But are you satisfied with the Libyan response so far?
Well, it's very unfortunate, it's very shameful that an incident that has captured the imaginations of many people around the world, yet the Libyan Football Federation is still being on the defensive. You know, I want to take you down memory lane. A day after the match against, when we defeated them in Uyo, on social media, the Libyan fans were actively putting messages out, insisting that when Nigeria comes to Libya, they are going to humiliate Nigeria, not on the pitch, but in their country. And what you saw play out from day before yesterday till yesterday until our players arrived in Nigeria was in tandem with the messages they had been putting out on social media. So when they say that we maltreated them in Nigeria, that's false, that's not true. Yesterday, the media officer of the Nigerian Football Federation, Dr. Olajire, he put out a detailed explanation of what transpired. I'm also involved in football. I know what exactly happened when they arrived in Nigeria, and the claim that we humiliated them is not true. See, let me tell you, Benin defeated us in Abidjan during the World Cup qualifier. Last month, Benin came to Nigeria to play Nigeria in Uyo. We didn't humiliate Benin. We received them at the airport in Uyo. We ensured that their stay in Nigeria was very, very hospitable. So why will we want to humiliate Libya? Libya are not our equals in football. They are ranked 121 in football. I mean, why would we want to humiliate them from the onset? But like I said, what is going on here is what we call sports table politics. The Libyans are desperate. Their plan was to get a point in Nigeria, then take us to their country and get a maximum of 3 points because they've not qualified for any international tournament in a very, very long time. So the idea that we humiliated them in Nigeria is not true. When they eventually got to Uyo, we vacated the Icon Resort Hotel, formerly known as Le Méridien Hotel. That's the traditional base of the Nigerian Super Eagles. We vacated that hotel and moved to the 4 Points Hotel, and we allowed them stay in that hotel. How more hospitable can we be as a country? So this idea that Nigeria humiliated them is not true. They've been putting out a lot of pictures and videos. I want you to take your time and scrutinize those videos. Some of those videos were taken in their country. You can see some of the videos of them being in the airport. You can see you have Arab-looking attendants at that airport, you know. I monitored the Libyan team before they arrived in Nigeria. Their supporters were already criticizing them because they admitted that their preparations for that match was haphazard. So the idea that Nigeria humiliated them in Nigeria is not true. It's not in our nature. In fact, Nigeria is about the most hospitable African country that you can think of. Many countries have come here, played football, and gone back in one piece. The Libyans cannot define our identity. It's not true.
Now, do you think that, given the tension that has been generated by this, the bad blood, do you think that Nigeria would, it would be in Nigeria's interest to even go there for the second leg? What would you suggest?
Well, you know, first and foremost, that match should never have taken place in Benghazi. Because if you are familiar with the Libyan situation, since 2013, they've had two governments in Libya. One government in Tripoli, another government in Benghazi. That of Tripoli is recognized by the United Nations. That of Benghazi are headed by a combination of rebel groups. So we shouldn't have gone and played any match in Benghazi. If you've monitored the past couple of years, Heartlands FC, they were in Benghazi to play sometime in 2021. They were also humiliated. Rivers United, Eyimba FC, last year both teams were in Benghazi to play. It was the same story. So what you saw them do to Nigeria was not a coincidence. It was a deliberate attempt to humiliate us, a deliberate attempt to put our players and officials in harm's way. If not for the Almighty, only God knows what would have transpired. So the question of whether we should go back and play in Benghazi, no. The idea of playing in Libya, I don't think that will happen. There's no Nigerian player at this point in time who will feel confident or safe enough to even attempt, not just even to play in Libya, to attempt to fly into the Libyan space, going by what happened a couple of days in Libya. So it's a big no. Nigeria won't play in Libya. I'm optimistic that CAF will now do the right thing to ensure that even if that match is going to be replayed, it will be replayed in a neutral ground. Let me tell you, Libya just recently got approval to start playing their home matches in their country. They played Rwanda last month. They played Rwanda in Tripoli. Why didn't they take Rwanda to Benghazi? Why did they play in Tripoli? Because they know that the Rwandese will stand up to them. But Nigeria, we always want to play the big brother to African countries. But this time around, while insisting that the right thing will be done. Libya has demonstrated that they don't have the capacity to provide security, to provide comfort for our world-class footballers. Hence, Nigeria will not play in their country again.
Okay.
Well, if the decision is now taken that we should go back there, what do you think we should do? However, I hope that CAF will not take that decision, but in case it is.
Well, if you go down memory lane, I don't want to believe that CAF will insist that Nigeria should go back and play in Libya. Because if you understand what transpired a couple of days in Libya, you will understand that it was a very tense situation. Like I mentioned, eastern Libya, where the city of Benghazi is located, the city of Al-Barak, where the airport was located, and the city of Benina, where Nigeria was going to play their game, is in the hands of rebels. As at the time we landed at Al-Barak airport, there was no member of the Libyan Football Federation on hand to receive us, which is against standard protocol. Usually when you go into a foreign country to play, you have the members of the local football federation waiting at the airport to receive you, and members of your own country's mission. But when we landed at Al-Barak, the members of the Libyan Football Federation were not on hand to receive us. Members of the Nigerian mission were not on hand because the government of Benghazi refused to grant them permission to come in from Tripoli. So the Nigerian contingent were literally at the mercy of rebel soldiers who were looking after, who were in control of the airport. There were no immigration officials or nothing. I mean, if you see some of the videos, you'll be stunned that the Nigerian team were allowed to even land in such a dirty, unlooked after environment. So I don't want to believe that CAF will say we must go back and play in Libya. If they insist we go back and play, if you look at the table, Libya getting 3 points will not make a difference for them at this point in time. They are just desperate because they've not qualified for an international tournament in a very long time. They think Nigerian can serve as their guinea pigs to propel them to qualifying for the next AFCON. So, but I don't think CAF will make such a decision.
Okay, so right now, what is the way out? Should we boycott the game, or 3 points awarded to Nigeria, or perhaps the game be played on a neutral ground? What are your thoughts on that?
They have also threatened to sue us. Hassan, they've also threatened to sue us. The Libyans have threatened to sue us for refusing to play the match.
Well, you know, for a country that has experienced war, they're just coming out there, and in fact, war is still ongoing. A lot of them are probably suffering from PTSD. So the idea of suing us, on what grounds? Is it by force to play? We say we don't feel safe. We have big players like Ademola Lookman, the AFCON MVP, Trust Ekong was also on hand, and Boniface was there, several big players. They don't feel safe playing in Libya, so they are going to sue us. I don't think that lawsuit will gain any momentum because right now the international community are against the Libyans. I also want to remind Nigerians, it was in the same Libya in 2013, the American ambassador, Ambassador Andrews, was murdered in the American consulate in Benghazi, to be specific. That's how dangerous that place is. CAF should never have allowed us to go and play in Benghazi. You know, and the idea of saying what is the way out? Right now, the Nigerian government has taken the right steps. Our President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has already insisted that CAF must do the right thing. That is pressure on its own. The president of the Nigerian Football Federation, Alhaji Ibrahim Gusso, he was on hand with the team in Libya. He managed the situation until our players came back to Nigeria in one piece. The NFF have already written a protest letter to CAF. The Nigerian Foreign Affairs, they must inform the United Nations, because what transpired day before yesterday and yesterday is not just football, it's international confrontation. What if that airplane had crashed? What would we be saying? You understand? So I think the attack should be multifaceted.
Okay, so in other words, you agree that CAF actually dropped the ball here because Libya is a nation in crisis.
I wonder
Two different governments. We have that of Tripoli, Benghazi. Should Nigeria have even been send their contingents there in the first place. So do you agree that CAF actually dropped the ball here?
You know, this is what I was saying, that Nigeria had no business being in Benghazi. When you mention the name Benghazi, Benghazi is associated with turmoil. It is not associated with stability. We had no business being in that country, you know.
Now, what are your expectations of our team as we move on in this competition and others that we are involved in? People are saying that we have far more potential than we are delivering on the football pitch, struggling to score goals and all that.
Well, I think a few months ago, there was seemingly crisis in our national team because of the results we got during the World Cup qualifiers. We drew with South Africa in Uyo. We lost to Benin in Abidjan. But currently, there seems to be stability. You know, the interim coach, Augustine Eguavon, he seems to have restored confidence in the team. The players believe in him. And I'm optimistic. If we had played this game today, we would have beaten them silly in their country. That's why they did all this stuff, because they don't want us to play. They don't want to face us. But I'm optimistic that going forward, we still have a couple of games to play for the AFCON qualifiers. We will use those games to prepare for the upcoming World Cup qualifiers, which will take place in the second quarter of 2025. But so far, so good. The team is on track to qualify for AFCON, which is a big plus for us.
Okay. All right, thank you so much for having this conversation. Hassan Wada. Hassan Wada is the chairman, Kogi State Football Association. Thank you so much for joining us in Journalist Hangout.
Thank you for the opportunity again.
Okay, I think it's a fine place for us to leave it. The president has actually, talked to CAF demanding thorough investigation. I think it's a fine place for us to leave it. Maybe in just 1 second, your parting thought.
Can you talk in 1 second? Well, we hope that CAF will take the right decision. We want to play, but it has to be on a neutral ground. When you are faced with this kind of situation, it has to be a neutral ground. And I'm confident that on a neutral ground, we'll beat them and beat them silly. So this is what I want to say. And the Nigerian officials have called the charged affair of Libya, to ask him why did you people allow this to happen. So hopefully it won't degenerate into diplomatic spat between both countries. And we wish the Super Eagles well in their upcoming games. Okay.
I think maybe it was a CAF way of peace building. That's why they took them to Libya. But I think it was a wrong decision in the first place.
A wrong decision.
A wrong decision.
All right, thank you so much, Olainka Yebule. Thank you very much for having this conversation. BKO. Thank you very much. And that's it on Journalist Hangout today. Join us tomorrow for another episode of the program. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11 and join us on Sunday from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. for Journalist Hangout on Sunday. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. I am Benga Oreshegun. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.